Antrim's senior Camogie campaign came to an end last Sunday, and what an ending it turned out to be as they were crowned All-Ireland Intermediate champions after a dominant win over Kilkenny. In the end, the Saffrons led most of the way after a slow start, and nobody in Croke Park was in any doubt that the Antrim Camogues were worthy victors. Having beaten Kilkenny already in the group stages, expectations were high, and the only real worry was how a team with little experience in Croke Park would cope with the big occasion. Nerves were settled a little when Maeve Kelly pounded it within the first 60 seconds, but the next 7 minutes were worrying as Kilkenny scored the next 4 points, shot wide with another scoreable chance, and Danielle Quigley somehow hit the post when one-on-one with Antrim goalkeeper Katrina Graham. Thankfully, that was as good as it got for the Cats, and by the 10th minute Antrim were level, and they never fell behind again on their way to becoming All-Ireland champions. Over the last week, I've watched the game back a few times on the RTE player, so I thought I would put together a bit of analysis, unfortunately without the actual video as I don't want to be breaching any copyright laws. As I've already mentioned, the first 7 or 8 minutes were a bit of a concern for the Saffrons as Maeve Kelly's point was the only real positive as Kilkenny made all of the early running. In the 8th minute, Danielle Quigley had that great chance which thankfully struck the post. Within 20 seconds, Antrim had gone up the field and Amy Boyle set up Roisin McCormick for a score from a tight angle. And I don't think that 20-second passage of play can be understated as it was a real game changer and seemed to spark the Saffrons into life. One thing I decided to take a look at was where the Antrim scores came from. In Gaelic games, you'll often see who scored but little on who created the chances. So I've gone over each point and goal to see who the most creative players were for the Saffrons. Mostly I went with who made the final pass, but on a couple of occasions I gave the assist to a player who might not have necessarily touched the ball as Antrim won possession after they had forced an error from the opponent. Here's the full list of assists from the Saffron Stars. As you can see, Katrine Dobbin came out on top with an impressive contribution of 1-4. Of those scores, 1-1 came as a result of her pressuring an opponent and stopping them getting a proper clearance which one of her teammates then took advantage of. Second up was Amy Boyle, who contributed to 5 points. She didn't score in the game herself, but as you can see, she still made one hell of a contribution to Antrim's victory. In third place was Roisin McCormick, who helped her teammates score 1-2. It's not a surprise to see her near the top as she's been lethal right through the season. She top scored for Antrim in every single game in this championship, and these numbers show that as clinical as she is, she knows when the time is right to play in a teammate, which is all you can ask for in a forward. After that, there's a good spread in the team with Maeve Kelly, Christine Laverty and goalkeeper Katrina Graham all helping the team to 2 points each, while Katie McAleese, Nicole O'Neill, Maeve Conley and Niamh Donnelly from fullback all helped their teammates score a point. I will admit that I was a bit concerned in the opening minutes as it looked like the occasion might get to the Antrim team, but thankfully after that brief blip at the start they really got to grips with the game, and having watched it a few times over, it's honestly difficult to pick out too many flaws, and it was honestly a near perfect performance from Antrim. From 1 to 15 they were superb, and the 5 subs who got off the bench all looked to contribute. And even in the dying minutes, with an All-Ireland in the bag, they never ever let the standards or their levels drop. On the ball, they showed great skill, but they were equally as good in defence. And the more I watch the game back, the more you can see how good the work rate was and how effective they were in hunting down the Kilkenny players in groups of 2s and 3s to ensure they were always faced with as difficult a task as possible to get the ball into their hand or to be able to move it through the lines and up the field towards teammates. Ultimately, that comes down to 2 things, and it's good coaching and a good attitude from the players. Defeat the down in this final last year will have hurt this team, but there's no doubt that it will have also allowed them to see what's required to win at this level, and if they put 100% work into it, they will be rewarded, and there wasn't a player on the pitch who didn't look like they would walk over hot coals to ensure a victory. In goal, Katrina Graham had a good game. It's a tough position to play and you're limited in the influence you can have in a game. Her puck outs were long and she was helped by the work rate of her teammates who ensured that they made the most of them. She also made a great save from point blank range in the second half by charging off her line and getting her body in the way of a goal bound effort. I think it come off her knee, but the way she charged down the player was excellent. The full-back line of Chloe Drain, Niamh Donnelly and Maria Lim were superb throughout. Chloe Drain has a great coolness under pressure, and while many would be looking to clear their lines as soon as possible, she was always happy to try and drink past an opponent to allow herself the time and space to make sure that she gets the ball away, but also that she gives it the best chance of reaching a teammate. Niamh Donnelly was fantastic in the middle, and on at least 3 occasions she got herself in the way of the final pass as Kilkenny attempted to get the ball to a player who would have had a clear goal scoring opportunity, and it just seemed that Niamh's stick just got in the way a few times to stop that. And Maria Lynn, she, as I said, has got better and better as the game went on, and in the last 10 minutes there was nobody stood up more than Maria Lynn, and she just seemed to be everywhere and constantly popping up to thwart the Kilkenny attacks. The half-back line, Colleen Patterson, Kiva Conlon and Maeve Conley were, to me, they were brilliant. They've a bit of a thankless task in there, and that they're unlikely to get on the score sheet, and they're not really playing deep enough to make like a real goal-saving tackle. But their task and what they done brilliantly was they just made life impossible for Kilkenny. Most of Kilkenny's play was breaking down in around that half-back line due to just sheer tenacity of Patterson, Conlon and Conley. And they didn't give an inch. And then whenever the ball was won, they were able to get it into the midfield and the half-forward line to set the Saffrons back on the front foot. In midfield, Lucia McNaughton, the captain, and Nicole O'Neill, they were just everywhere. Similar to the half-backs, their work rate was fantastic. But for me, the highlights of their day were actually points that they scored. Where they actually started the move, ran halfway up the pitch, and eventually took their score. Lucia McNaughton's point came in 13 minutes, and I'm honestly not exaggerating. I'm going to say I had to watch the replay 3 or 4 times to see what had happened. It genuinely was like, I thought she played the ball long, and then she scored the point, and I was like, no, there must have been somebody else that couldn't have been the same, but it was her. She got the Chloe Drain passed the ball to Lucia McNaughton, who played it long up to Katrine Dobbin, and she honestly must have covered about 50 metres, and Katrine Dobbin played the ball down and played the ball to her, and she just knocked over a great score off her left hand side. And similarly, Nicole O'Neill had one as well, where it was a Kilkenny clearance, and Nicole O'Neill knocked the ball down to Roisin McCormick and continued her run, and McCormick laid it off to her, and she took a great point as well. The half-forward line, I've already said about Amy Boyle, who didn't score herself but proved herself more than useful with setting up 5 scores for her teammates. There was one of them in particular was fantastic, where it was just right. I think it was possibly the last score of the first half, and she was kind of running away from goal, and she flicked the ball back between her own legs, and the opponent then was coming to close her down, and she managed to flick it through her legs and then flicked it up into Katrine Dobbin, who scored then that final point of the first half. The one side of her out was Anya McGill, who scored a point. McGill, obviously, Anya has to get a special mention as being the only player to have played for both Antrim's All-Ireland winning teams there in the senior and the minor teams. And it's fair to say probably by this point she probably just refers to Sundays as All-Ireland final day after playing in 3 Sundays in a row. As good as those two were, there's no doubt that the star of the half-forward line was Maeve Kelly. Coming from a soccer background myself, I feel that it's like quite fitting that she wears the number 10, as that would kind of be like the creator, the kind of sometimes the star player in soccer and stuff. So to me, she's still very young, but she's such a remarkable talent. Sometimes in team sports you get a player, and whenever they get the ball, the atmosphere within the ground changes, and that's exactly the way it is whenever Maeve Kelly gets the ball. She picks up the ball and people know that something's going to happen. And the match, she ended up getting 1-5 all from play. And almost every single one of them was basically the same thing. Where she picked the ball up, put it on the stick, soloed, used her speed, power, skills to drive past the opposition before scoring. There was also two examples where she played her part in other scores for Roisin McCormick, with Kilkenny basically stopping her the only way they could, be taking her down whenever she was running. And obviously then Roisin McCormick was able to take advantage of that by scoring the frees. Maeve was named player of the match, and she has also now been named player of the month for September. And it's hard to make an argument against either, to be honest, when you consider how well she performed and what's the most important day of the year. At full forward, Christine Laverty didn't get on the score sheet, but she put in a great shift and helped create scores for Maeve Kelly and Roisin McCormick through her willingness to hunt down every loose ball. Alongside her, Katrine Dobbin was another who grew into the game more and more as it went on. She ended up with 1-2, and to be honest, her goal was probably the moment when most of the fans inside Croke Park went from thinking we have a great chance of winning this game to we've probably done enough to win it now. I was sitting just right adjacent to where Roisin McCormick got the ball for her goal, and you could see Roisin was running towards goal, and the defender had the choice of staying with Katrine or coming to Roisin, and you know it was obvious that there was a goal scoring opportunity, and it initially looked like it might be gone as Katrine Dobbin just didn't take the ball cleanly, but she's, once she had the opportunity, she wasn't going to be denied, and in the end, like she was forced wider and was able to get the ball back across into the far corner. It was a great finish. Also worth mentioning, as I said earlier, that she was the biggest creative influence for the team by helping them score 1-4. Helping out, and there was a moment as well, it was a bit scary moment actually, where there was a high ball played in and she was running in, eyes on the ball, and the Kilkenny goalkeeper come crashing out. And it's always worse when there's a collision and the player doesn't see it coming, and it looked like it was on Katrine's blind side and she got took out, but obviously a few seconds that she was up and dusting herself down. But it was one of them things where you look at it and it was a brilliant advertisement for the fact now that obviously everyone wears helmets, because without a helmet, it could have been a lot worse. Finally, from the Antrim starting 15 is Roisin McCormick. Maeve Kelly won player of the match, but if anyone else deserved to share the accolade, it would be Roisin McCormick. She ended up with 9 points in the day, 5 of which were from open play, and I swear that her marker actually played really well. At times, she was being marshalled really well by the Kilkenny cornerback, but then she'd just get an inch and take a score. As well as her 9 points, she set up Katrine Dobbin's goal and 2 points for Nicole O'Neill. As good as she was in the final, her performances right through this championship have to be taken into consideration as well. She ended up with 633 from the 6 matches Antrim played in winning the title, which works out as an average of a goal and 5.5 points every time she stepped on the field. Great teams always need a few players who can score frequently, and there's no doubt that McCormick is a huge asset to this team. When you score 9 points in an All-Ireland final, you've every right to be pleased with yourself, but for me the best, and maybe even most important, was the equalising point to bring the teams level at 4 in the 10th minute. Niamh Donnelly played a long pass right down the line along the Hogan stand, and Roisin McCormick, she wasn't able to take it cleanly, but her reaction to that was as good as anything I've seen on a pitch. She somehow manoeuvred herself, or like in one movement from not catching the ball cleanly, she was able to basically manoeuvre her body round to flick the ball through her marker's legs, and then ran round the other side of her and soloed her way up to the next opponent, and before sticking it over the bar. It was a fantastic score, and one that would grace any game at any level in Ireland. The future looks bright for Antrim right now. They've won the intermediate title, which means they'll take on senior opposition next season. It'll obviously be a step up, but success brings new challenges, and there are a lot of good young camogues in this Antrim team who are more than capable of raising their game as the standard of the opponent rises. It won't be easy, but it's worth noting that Antrim's nemesis in recent times, Down, did manage to maintain their senior status this season. They lost all of their games in the group stages, but they ran their opponents close, with their heaviest loss coming to All-Ireland senior finalist Cork when they lost by 6 points. There's not a lot between Antrim and Down, and as the Antrim team grows in experience, one would hope that they'll be able to push on at senior level. One thing that could help Antrim's push on at the next level would be the emergence of new talent to help bolster the squad. Unfortunately, there's a panel of 26 young ladies who've followed up the senior team's success by landing an All-Ireland B minor title of their own. And every one of them players, I'll be looking at a spot on the senior team in the near future. While there's nobody's clamouring for anyone in the senior team to be replaced, a panel of All-Ireland champions at minor level coming in with aspirations and making the breakthroughs is the sort of thing that managers dream of. The more good players Antrim have, the better, and it will only serve to strengthen the standard of Antrim Camogie right through the panel and hopefully into the first 15, which leads me to believe there's real reason to think good things can happen for Antrim Camogie right now. There's every chance the Camogues will be the only Antrim team playing at senior level next year, with the hurlers unfortunately losing their Liam McCarthy status after an excellent campaign in the league. The ladies footballers made good progress by making the junior football final, while for the men's footballers to compete in the Sam Maguire next year, they'll either have to win promotion to Division 2 or reach the Ulster final. Therefore, Antrim Camogie are flying the flag for the county at the highest level, but hopefully they will be joined by the other teams in other codes as soon as possible. Having briefly mentioned the success of the Antrim Minors, I feel it has to be said that they were fantastic in their All-Ireland B final on Sunday. They played well in the first game to take the game to a replay against Offaly, but they reached another level entirely on Sunday past to win 3-15 to 3-8, and in truth the win was a lot more comfortable than the score suggests, as Offaly came with a run of late goals to produce a minor scare for the Antrim team. Much credit has to go to Anya McGill, who completed the All-Ireland double with the seniors and minors. Although as good as she was, and she was excellent, it goes to show you how high the standard is when she wasn't even regarded as the best player in her own house, with her sister Bridget was fantastic at fullback and earned the award for player of the match. Bridget and Anya's sister Brona was also a starter for Antrim to complete a real family affair for the McGills. On the day, Cassie MacArthur, and a cousin of the McGill sisters, believe it or not, top scored with 1-4, but there should also be a special mention for Orla Donnelly of Glenravel, who along with their Offaly counterpart produced a sublime display of goalkeeping with some outstanding saves to help Antrim get over the line. Here's a full list of the Antrim Minors who were victorious against Offaly. In goal, it was Orla Donnelly of Glenravel. The fullback line, Ailva Kane of St Enda's, Breed McGill of Dunloy and Orla McElroy from Ballycastle. Halfbacks were Ellen McIntosh and Faye McIntosh, both of Ballycastle, and Laura Hockey of Cushendall. In midfield, it was Orla Laverty of Lochgill and Anya McGill from Dunloy. The half-forward line was Brona McGill from Dunloy, Evan Martin from Craigan, and Finola Kelly, captain and sister of Maeve from Ballycastle. And the forward line then was Sheena Woodhouse from Cushendall, Cassie MacArthur from Dunloy, and Nola Devlin from Ballycastle. And from the bench then was Emily O'Neill from Dunloy, Niamh Neeson from Ahuckle, Monique O'Boyle from Cushendall, Katie Rose Bell of Loch Mardal Kesh, Sarah Fife of Glenravel, Eva Graham from Ballycastle, Cara Conley from Lochgill, Emer Vallely, Port Glenone, Emily McCurk from Rossa, Kiva McMullen Lochgill, and Niamh Graham of Cushendall. The inter-county season is now over for Antrim Camogie, and there's no doubt it's been a memorable one. Whether I've been watching online or made it to games, there's been no shortage of entertainment. Thankfully, there's still some action to be had as the camaraderie and close friendships go out the window for a few weeks when the club championship gets underway. Lochgill will be expected to retain their title, especially with having 14 players in the senior panel, but Dunloy and Ballycastle will both think they might have a chance too, with 4 and 5 players respectively on the senior panel, while they were both well represented on the minor panel with 5 from Dunloy and 6 from Ballycastle. As a neutral, I don't mind who comes out on top, but I do hope it proves to be a good competition and helps keep the players improving for a crack at the best the country has to offer when they don their Sam Flodden jerseys in next season's All-Ireland Senior Camogie Championship.